beautiful kids and nephew are back there.
I put them to work. They're selling my CDs. You can go visit them anytime during the show. So they're... What? Yeah, this is what I did because he wouldn't buy my CD. I had
to. There's plenty of hammers. She carries them. That's a pleasure to finally get to do this.
I'm happy to be here. I'm a Bellevuean.
Yeah. That is. Yeah. Will and I interviewed Vic a couple weeks ago for our site, Music Starts Here, and that'll be up very soon, so go check that out. Let's start when you were young. Tell me about just a few years ago.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. Tell me about your earliest memory of music.
Well, my parents were both musical and both have been in the business. My dad had been a performer in New York, and my mother had been a performer and was on for a short time on Verve Records and Capitol Records. So that was all before I was born. But there was a lot of music in my family, and so I probably heard music before I heard talking. My mother always said she sung everything to me. I'm going to change your diaper. Everything was changed. Was singing. So I mean, they got out of the business when I was very young. I don't remember them really in it too much. But my mom did the Ed Sullivan Show and Arthur Godfrey and a whole bunch of stuff. So music was very much a part of my life. Not so much country music in the beginning, but music.
With her, you remember listening to the radio, anything that stands out?
Not the radio, just watching all the MGM musicals and all the standards and any, big band, all that stuff. I mean, that's the stuff they played for me. And then I got older and fell madly in love with Elvis Presley's Flaming Star cassette. That was like my favorite thing in the whole world. Actually, they're out of my thing. Yeah? I mean, it was my only Elvis thing, but I loved that. Tom Jones and Elvis Presley. Everybody with big vibratos. Those were my favorites. So I got into that. Jackson 5, then, I mean, everybody. Then my dad brought home a Kenny Rogers record when I was a little, like, in junior high, and The Gambler. I loved it. I grew up in L.A., born in New York and raised in L.A., so it wasn't like the country mecca. But, we had Linda Ronstadt and the Eagles and J.D. Souther, which really nowadays would have been country music, And our radio station there played Kenny Rogers and Anne Murray, all that stuff that was kind of in between. So, and I watched Hee Haw every week. I just didn't admit it. And Barbara Mandrell's show. And so I think I kind of, through osmosis, got a lot more country, because when I got serious about it, I was like, oh, I know that song. Oh, I know that song, So it was interesting. Am I talking too much?
I love it.
Okay. Thank you. It's not bad. Thank you.
This is the best crew here, Give her that.
Thank you.
So you're doing that. What led you to Nashville?
I moved to New York at 18. I'd been raised in LA and moved to New York because that seemed to make me happy. And I started working at a recording studio in the city at night, and or during the day I would manage it, and I swept floors, and then I became like the manager and the tape copy girl and all that stuff like that. And I lived in Long Island with my aunt for the first year, and I had I'd always wrote songs, and I was always in bands. But I was in New York and I didn't know anybody. And I had this little tiny Casio. Remember those little Casios you can only play one note at a time? And I wrote this song coming home from Long Island one night. Coming home from the city. I'm trying to think if I was already playing like in a piano bar. I think I was already playing in a piano bar there. And I wrote this song, and I came back to my aunt's house, and on this little dinky one-note Casio, I wrote this song that came out completely country. And that, all of a sudden, I put it down, I was like, well, that was interesting. And that was actually the first song I ever had on the radio, which got played in New York, which was, my dad was great. He's like, fly on here, let's make a demo, So he didn't know much about it. We just hired some musicians, and we made a 45. So then you have a 45, you're like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? But somebody said, there was a big station in New York, which I knew, and there's a program director, who I didn't know what a program director was, but he's a nice guy, you should call him. So I called this guy up and I said, I heard you were a nice man, would you listen to my music? And I think it's because I called him nice, he didn't want to be mean. He goes, well, come in and I'll listen to it. I can't play it or anything, but I'll give you my opinion. So I played it for him and had to do with New York and had some, things like that. And he goes, can you leave this with me? And I said, sure. And about a few days later, he called up and he said, I just tested your song on the air. And it became a big hit in New York. It was really wild, So, there's different paths, It didn't, open every single door for me, but it certainly changed my life, as in, country. I think I like country, you know? I mean, it was so natural. It just kind of came out that way.
So it was time to move to Nashville?
Then I started making trips to Nashville. And actually Nashville started to inquire who I was because I had this biggest station in the country playing me. So I went down there with the thought of, well, I'm just going to go down there. And I wasn't really serious about songwriting. I kind of did it like a hobby, but I was a serious singer. So I thought, well, I'll go down there and find some hit songs and I'll get a record deal and it'll just be so easy. I'll be back by noon, you know? And so I came down there. Came down here and started having some appointments and everybody passed on me. However, I started to play them stuff I had recorded just because, well, here's how I sing. You know, it was songs I had written, but here's my voice. And a few publishers had said, this, you know, you have a lot of promise if you want to come down here and write with the big boys. You know, if you want to come down here and give it a try, call me if you're in town. So I thought, when nobody offered me a record deal, I thought, I'm not leaving. You can't make me leave. You know, I'm going to conquer this place. So maybe if I become a hit songwriter, I'll get noticed that way and get my record deal. Which was the best, fabulous, you know, accident that ever happened. Because if I got my deal like that, I wouldn't have thought about writing, you know.
So just instant success.
Oh, instant success, absolutely. No, I came down here and started to write with, you know, all these new writers who are now funny, you know. Marcus Hummon was one of the first writers I met, and Marcus wrote God Bless the Broken Road. I mean, we all started out together. Stephen Curtis Chapman, I used to pay him $100 to do my demos. He would play everything and sing on them, you know. A guy named Monroe Jones, who was also a very good writer, went into the pop world. All these people who, none of us had anything. This guy named Gary Overton was the tape copy guy at this place I was kind of, you know, writing out of, not signed to, but writing out of. And now he's the president of RCA Records, you know? Wow. So this is a long time ago. And, but it was like going to school, you know? It was such a good education. And so, no, it didn't happen overnight. It took me about eight or 9 years to get something going here, and people hate hearing that. Because I've told you, so many people, I'll go to the dry cleaners, hey, Victoria Shaw, you know, I'm a writer too. Man, I've been here 2 years and nothing's happening. I look at them and say, it took me, you know, 8 years before I even got a pat on the head. You know, and you see their face drop. But it didn't occur to me to stop. I had a good time. And I was going back and forth between New York and here, because I made a really good living playing in the bars. So I'd play, then take off a month, jump in my car, drive down here, network, right, back up. It was a little schizophrenic, so, but it was my path.
So you stayed positive the whole time?
Yeah, I think I'm too stupid not to. It never occurred to me not to be positive. I like every journey I go on, so, I don't know, I just figured, I don't know, I mean, I'm lucky I had that talent, because if I'd want to be a dancer, I would be in a lot of trouble right now. But I had the talent for writing, and I just persevered, and it never occurred to me to give up, because people would encourage me. They wouldn't do anything for me, but at least they would encourage me. So it kept me going. I just figured at some point it would be my turn at bat if I just kept going and taking criticism correctly, leaving the stuff that probably wasn't for me, or, you know.
How do you take criticism the right way when they're...
Now I don't take it at all. Don't even try. I always liken it to this. It's my story, okay? And I always say this when I'm doing lectures and stuff. You have to be open to criticism. And that doesn't mean you have to lay down and do everything somebody tells you. But if you're not open to it, you lose. Big time. And so I think it's like this. I buy a new dress, and I think, oh my God, I look so good in this dress. And then I come and I show it to you, and I say, don't I look good in this dress? And you say, yeah, you know, it's okay. I'm not sure I like the color on you. And I would think, you're crazy, I look great. So then I walk down and I go to somebody else. Do I look good in this dress or what? This is not bad, you know. I think I've seen you in something better. What do you mean? Go to the next person. Well, if everybody's telling me the same thing, it's not that they're crazy. I'm wrong. And I have to go look in the mirror and go, no matter what I think, I must be seeing it wrong. I need to change this dress. So I try to kind of do it like that. You know, if I'm getting the same comment over and over and over again about a song, well then you really have to be open to it and go, you know, no matter how good or what my intentions are or how right I think I am, I can either be right in my room where nobody listens to it or try to change it so that it gets better.
So your friends were really important those first 8 years of that, to keep you going?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough at sometimes to write with people who really had cuts, like this girl Lisa Silver, who was one of the few successful women songwriters back in the day. She wrote 40-Hour Week for Alabama, and she wrote One Promise Too Late for Reba, and she was kind enough to write with me. I had nothing going on, and anybody who's had cuts, you know, always upped my game. I became a better writer because I learned, oh, that's really interesting that they do that, you know. Or some of it would be, oh, that's cool, I do the same thing, so I'm not off the mark, you know. Oh, I still write with people better than me to up my game. You know, I never stop growing.
How do you go about, what's the best thing for a writer? It's been here for a while, they want to write out, they haven't had that opportunity. How do you go about that? How do you get noticed by something that's better than you? What should you do?
Not focus so much on doing that. Focus on finding talented people right now that are undiscovered. You'll have a better shot. You know, I wrote with Garth. He was still selling boots. So it wasn't that, oh, this guy's going to do something for me. So, I mean, if you can hang out with talented peers, and I found that the people I gravitated to really were very talented. And almost all my small circle of friends that I ended up, you know, hanging with, all got their turn at bat and all found success. So, you know, network and play out as much as you can if you're a performer, even if you're a little bit of a performer. You'll meet somebody sitting next to you at the Douglas Corner, and if they invite you to write, do that. How I got to finally write with somebody like Lisa is I made friends with a publisher who didn't sign me, but he let me use his office sometimes, and he introduced me to her. You know, relationships are everything.
So you're here 8 or 9 years, you finally get that publishing deal.
Mm-hmm.
How did you land that? What happened?
I got signed by an artist who had a publishing deal, Gary Morris, because I think he had a better vision of something different. Because I didn't write typical country. I had a lot of pop influence. I had a lot of different influences, and he wasn't scared because he was so broad. He did country. He had just done Broadway, and so I think he took a chance on me because we had a mutual friend, and he saw me hustling, and one day I said to him, I'm kind of looking for a publishing deal, and he said, I'll give you one, which was amazing, for like no money. But that's okay, because it changed my life, you know? I didn't care about the money, just work my songs. And sometimes you gotta make a deal like that, and it all works out fine. You know, you gotta spend a little to get a little. Because you can hold 100% of nothing, or you can say, you know what? Here, take this for now, because eventually that's going to launch me into good things.
Most people probably don't know, after 8 years, nothing. The next year, 3 #1s.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
I don't know. I think it was God who said, okay, enough. You really struggled. Here we go. I mean, really, it was crazy. I mean, 3 #1s in 12 months, and before that, I couldn't get arrested. So, no, seriously. So, you know what? When it's your turn at bat, it's your turn at bat. But it's not like waiting and here, come to me. I mean, I would work my behind off, but sometimes everything just lines up. I don't know what to say. It was just the right time.
Is that encouraging to anyone?
Yeah. Don't be greedy. If you get 1 #1 in a 1 year, it's good.
So how did that happen? I mean, what the songs? How did they finally get cut?
The first song, I don't know which one and in what order, but the Garth song I had written with Garth, it was actually a couple years old, and he just held on to it. And then it was supposed to make the second album, Friends in Low Places album, and it didn't. And I thought, there goes my chance. And then it made the Rope in the Wind. So that was just amazing. I'd written with the artist, and he ended up exploding. Too Busy Being in Love for Doug Stone was pitched by my plugger, by my publisher, the guy, not Gary, but the guy who worked for him, named Randy Hart. He actually, like a real good publisher, went out and got me that cut. And same with I Love the Way You Love Me, which he got cut by John Michael Montgomery. And what's funny is I knew that was I felt that was a special song, even though I had no cuts. I just knew it. And Gary Morris wanted me to change something in it. I don't remember what it was now, but he goes, I really like it, and if you change blah, 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 I'll cut it. And I had nothing going for me, and he goes, but don't if you don't feel it. And I said, I think I'm going to pass. I just think it's complete. He said, okay, and that lovely plugger man took it and got it to John Michael Montgomery, and I at first said, oh man, he's new. Oh, he's not going to do anything with it. Oh man, hope he sings well, and launched his career and won me an award. So it was wild, but it was like. Oh, I also got a Susie Boggess cut that same summer. It was just crazy.
Do you remember writing that with Chuck? Were you all just friends, peers?
No, I hadn't met Chuck. It was the first time I'd ever met him. I started that song up in New York. I was still doing my gigs, and I was driving from New York to Pennsylvania to do a piano bar gig that I had. And I was dating this guy at the time who I ended up marrying and having kids with, in that order, which is really weird for show business. But anyway, I was dating this guy, and I was thinking about how good he kissed, and how that sound the kiss makes it, and how sexy that sound is. And this never happens, but very seldom. But like the first 6 lines musically and lyrically just like went into my brain. And I'm driving, there's no cell phones in those days, there's nothing. I'm like, and I didn't want to lose it, so I pulled over and I called my house, my apartment, and I sang it into my phone machine. And I came back and I tried it out on the piano, and I carried this little thing around, and I'd met Chuck somewhere through mutual friends. He had nothing going on with him either. And we got together to write, and he came to the Gary Morris office, and all day long, we had nothing. We had a good time, we really got along, nothing. Tried like all these false starts. We went to lunch, we came back, and it's like 4 o'clock, about ready to call it a day, and I said, I do have this little start of a song. And I played it for him, and he said, oh my God, because he was falling in love with Laurie White at the time, who he now is married with, and we were just so in love with other people in that room, and the song just really spilled out. And I learned something from him that day, and he had been no success yet, but we were talking about what we wanted to say in the chorus. And I said, well, what we want to say is, I love the way you love me, but we can't say that because it's so simple. And he goes, why can't we say that? And he took it and he played this melody, and we just used it. It was a good thing to go. Sometimes you don't edit, you just try it. You dare to suck. That's my new motto, my old motto. I used to have it on my wall. Have we mentioned that my kids are selling my CDs over there? Like, it's so cute. Yeah, and then you can go up at any time and interrupt the show and go buy a CD.
Ruby and Ava are
I gotta put them to school.
So what happened next? So you got these 3 number ones. Did life change very much for you?
Oh. Yeah, absolutely. Then I was still flipping my bass. I was still coming back and forth between New York and Nashville. At that point, I was like, I better stay here permanently because things are happening and I can't be out of town. So I flipped my bass here, and what happened in that order? Well, then I started getting noticed, and then I really went after a record deal. That's what I really wanted. And because of that, it worked out the way I kind of hoped. Warner Brothers had an interest, and somebody had seen me, and I got a record deal. In between, or during that time, Garth released She's Every Woman, which is another song I had, and that went to number 1, so that was fun. I kind of got started concentrating on writing more for me than for other artists. And, I made a couple of albums on Warner Brothers. It was a great experience. I did it, I wanted to. And then it was time for me to go. I mean, they actually asked to make a 3rd album, but when nothing was happening, it wasn't where I was supposed to be, and I just thought, I need to go back to songwriting and perform when I want to, but I really wasn't interested in getting another record deal.
What did you learn as an artist that you could share with some of these great singers here in town that are working on that journey? What advice would you give them?
Oh, I don't really have, there's no one path. And even sometimes when you have all the things you think you're supposed to have, it's just a matter of everything lining up, and sometimes it doesn't. And the thing is to listen to certain doors that might be opening that you are not listening to. I'm so glad that I realized that songwriting is the one constant that I'm good at, and I seem to make money at. And the singing, which is so important to me, and I can never stop, is probably something I'm just going to do for joy and some money, but mostly just to make sure that I wasn't so closed-minded that I didn't want to write for other people. It's the biggest compliment in the world. I mean, aspiring artists and singers, learn an instrument so that no matter what, if you'll never starve, learn an instrument. Everybody has a different path. I don't really have one story,
So things started changing.
Mm-hmm.
What happened next in your life?
Had a baby.
Yeah.
You know what, I decided, you know, this is kind of a condensed, this is your life, I guess, but you know, at that same time I thought, I want to be a songwriter and I want to be a mom. I don't want to put that off anymore. And so what a great way to make a living, to have my schedule totally free. I never have to miss a recital or anything like that, you know, and so I decided to be a working mom songwriter, and it was just the best decision. And once I go back to my craft, you know, I always seem to get cuts. Sometimes it's slower, sometimes it's, you know, it's like a wave, you know, if you last this long in the business, sometimes you have slower years, sometimes you have better years, and so for a while I just kind of did that until the business started to change, and I started to realize that, you know, the doors were closing more because producers were kind of using in-house songs, and it was harder to get on projects, and it was really starting to squeeze some people, you know, it was hard to get heard. So then I thought, once again, I'm not going away. I will find my own reindeer, play my own reindeer game. And I thought, I'll discover, that's what it is, you know, I just thought I'll discover some talent, and I'll develop them. Once again, very naive, but I had a knack for it, you know, and I had the experience of being in front of the mic, behind the mic, the songwriter, I've been on the road. I had a lot to offer somebody young and upcoming. And so I just took my time, because I kept writing, but in the back of my head I thought, I'm going to find a guy, because I've had such success with guy songs. I want to find a guy, I'm going to develop him. I even put it like a little ad or something, you know, just putting the word out that I'm looking for a guy. And of course, you know, God laughs when you make plans. That's when I found Hillary Scott, you know, Lady Antebellum, and she was 16, and I saw her sing with her mom, who had known her mom, and she came out to sing at her Christmas show, and I just was like, oh. And everything kind of turned. She was very raw, very, you know, very needed guidance, but she had this gem of a sound that I just fell in love with. And then I just started to develop her. And it was like a 5-year process.
5 years.
But this, you know what, I knew it in my head. I knew 5 years, because they always say it takes 5 years to really launch a publishing company. In my head I thought, she's 16, 5 years, she's 21, we got time, you know? So I just took my time. I wanted her to have a high school experience, a college experience. We worked around all of her schedules, you know? And a couple of years into it, she met Charles and Dave. So my arms got bigger, they came already knowing how to write songs, but I definitely taught them how to up their game. And just started writing with them and developing them, and I've made enough friends and contacts in this business that when I thought it was time to showcase them, that I could make the right calls, and everybody came and everybody flipped out, and the rest is history.
So you take them into the studio, you get them the deal, take them in the studio. What was that like for you? First major thing.
I was excited. They decided that they wanted to have a veteran with me, you know, with us too. So we had Paul Worley, who I learned a lot from. But I knew that band inside and out. You know, I knew them, every little nuance of their voice. And you know, Charles can get away with a lot of stuff because he's so great that he can sing the phone book and you'd go, but I knew, you know, how to raise it even more because he's great. And they shouldn't, you know, his lazy voice is better than anybody else's voice in the world, but I would like kind of kick him in the butt. And if you see the little liner in that album, it's like something like, you know, I don't remember what it was teasing me because he used to go, God, you make me so angry in the studio, and then I hear myself and I'm better than I've ever been. It's like, because, you know, I would just go, I don't hear it, you gotta give me more passion, you know. And Hillary's just a doll, and she's got a beautiful voice, and once again, I just knew every nuance of their singing and of their songwriting because I did it with them. So it was a really fun, passionate experience.
Let's go back a little bit to the TV. How do you get TV cuts and soap operas and winning Emmys and so forth?
I have a very kooky life. I do. I put myself out there, and I try to really put myself into different situations. So I make as many friends in different genres as I can. And I always found that would make me survive more. You know, if country music didn't want me anymore, I wouldn't have to go back to the bars. I probably would just end up doing only television or something, you know, whatever it is. So how did I start in television? How did I start in television? Earl Rose or something?
Yes.
But how did he get me?
He called you.
Okay, yeah, man in New York.
He called
Warner Brothers. Yeah. A man in New York who was big writing for the soap operas, he somehow became a fan of mine or something, and maybe it was the New York thing he heard, and he called Warner Brothers and he asked to get in touch with me, and he asked to write with me, and the first song we wrote ended up being nominated for an Emmy. And then the second song we wrote a couple of songs later, you know, and he had been nominated like 14 times, and then we won, and he had never won before, which was great. And from there, I had some other friends that ended up in the soap. I mean, it sounds silly, but if you network and you meet enough people and you put yourself out there. I met somebody else who also worked in soaps, and I wrote with them, and I won another one. Both times I never showed up at the Emmy Awards because I thought, there's no way I'm winning. And then I won. And then when I won and I got nominated again, I thought, well, there's no way I'm winning too. And I won again. So I'm never going to the Emmy Awards ever if I'm nominated. Because I thought, that's just not happening.
So you're here in Nashville. That happens. Ricky Martin. Let's talk about that. I'm sure that was just a straight, easy shot for you too.
It wasn't that crazy. I have a friend here who actually went and visited him in Florida. I just saw some pictures. My friend Desmond Child, who's an unbelievable pop writer, has been a friend of mine for 16 years. And Desmond wrote Living on the Edge and Living on a Prayer and all these Bon Jovi hits, all these Aerosmith hits, Kiss, Joan Jett. I mean, he's an amazing writer. He came down here because he thought it was like the last frontier of great songwriting. And we got put together by our lawyer, who had a similar lawyer. And he was so cool because, first of all, I was such a fan, and he was such a monster songwriter. And he said to me, I really want to understand Nashville, and I don't know how it works. So as we write today, feel free to guide me, tell me that you can't go there, that's too many chords, drive the bus. And that's when I loved him, because he could buy and sell me any day of the week, and he was so humble. And we wrote this song called Where Your Road Leads, and that ended up on my first album, but also ended up getting cut by Patricia and Garth. So anyway, Desmond and I have been friends forever, and about 11 years ago, he called up and said, I'm having a songwriting camp out in Florida, come on, we're trying to write for Ricky Martin. And Gary Burr and I, who are dear friends, went and wrote with Desmond, and we wrote this song for Ricky. Desmond also did Live in La Vida Loca and the whole thing, so he was major in it. So it was easier because I wrote with the producer. And that helps, friendships, relationships, I would hate somebody sitting there going, oh, well, she wrote with the producer. Well, I made friends with him, and he became a lifelong friend, and good for me. You know what I mean? I never get tacky. I never, even back when I had nothing going on, go, oh, well, you have to have the song or nothing happens,
Anybody want to be a producer in here?
I don't even want to be one. No.
Get with them, meet them now. The next generation's got to come along, right?
Yeah. I thought, why not me?
Yeah.
I'm still the new generation. I'm still a newbie. I mean, I'm starting to, to do more projects, but compared to that big boy list up the road, I'm the new kid on the block,
So you went to the award shows with Lady A.
Yeah, I did.
And they pulled you up. That was great.
That was fun. The producers got to go up there, and that was really fun. That was a cool moment in time. So it was really fun.
Let's talk about co-writing. What are some of the good things you can do in a co-write? First time you write with someone.
You can have lunch, really good lunch.
Yeah. First time you write up with someone. I mean, have you ever been intimidated back in the day when you started writing up?
I don't know about intimidated where I couldn't, perform. Except for as I got more. It's funny, when I was established, I can remember 2 times where I was just like, and I couldn't. I did it, but I was lousy. And I'm still friends with him. Matter of fact, I just got an email from him today. It's Paul Williams, the great Paul Williams. Dear friend, love him to pieces. I was so nervous. And we talked the day, we had a fun time. And I knew that I was writing so But I was like, it's Paul Williams. And years later, I said to him, I was like, I gotta tell you, I've always felt so stupid that I didn't write well that day. I was so impressed, I was so excited. And he was so sweet. He goes, I felt the same way. It was really sweet. But he was newly sober, and he was nervous as hell to write himself. So he was on his own brain trip. I was like flipping out, but we had great lunch. And there was somebody else I wrote with, I think, that made me nervous. I know it was Paul for sure. Was there somebody else? I don't know, maybe it was just Paul. But, And then there's some people that I love and I'm not even nervous with, but we don't gel. And there's some of my dearest friends that I love them. We don't write well together. And I always say, you don't have to prove it to me. You've got all these hits. I don't have to prove it to you. Which is not a good match, you know?
How do you handle that when it doesn't go well with one of your friends? They say, let's get back together.
It's not, that's a hard one. I'm still learning how to handle it. I don't know. I've said that once kind of jokingly, but I mean, meaning, you know, maybe we're just, you know, meant to, but it's a hard one, you know. You hope that you both can look at each other and go, this isn't working. Let's just have lunch, you know.
What's the favorite place for lunch?
Where's the food? Well, actually, you know what?
A couple good lunch places.
Actually, I don't do the lunches anymore. That used to be part of the whole day, but now because I want to get home to my kids at an hour that's decent, I can't take an hour and a half for lunch, so basically Subway is the lunch of the choice for that. So it's basically, I either call and say, we're picking up Subway, or bring your own lunch because I've gone to Subway. So we eat through the writing thing.
So now you're a publisher. How has that changed? Do you have people writing for you, or just your office? How's that?
I have people writing for me, and I have a small company, and I try not to get it too large. This is, at this moment, probably the largest I've had, which is 3 writers. But, you know, Hillary Scott was the first writer I signed, and she wasn't a writer when I signed her, but I taught her how to be a songwriter, and now she is. Caroline Cupworth was the second, she was my intern actually, and then I signed her, and now she's in a group called Stealing Angels, which just had their first single come out that Paul Worley produced, so I'm really proud of her. Then I have this guy named Ryan Rothy, who's an aspiring writer and artist, and I just signed a girl named Carden McKinney, who's a star. She's a star. And you're going to hear about her within a year. As a matter of fact, you might have, she was on a couple of American Idols ago. She made it to the top 50, and she's been in a lot of music videos. Do You Believe Me Now, the Jimmy Wayne video, and a whole bunch of, she's quite a stunning girl, but very talented. And I have a girl named Amanda Flynn who writes for me, who's just a writer, which is really nice. She doesn't want to be an artist. It's fun.
So all the writers in town, you have your friends, you watch so many people. What was it about these writers? And I want them. There's so many choices.
There is, and I have to go with my gut, and I have to fall madly in love because I give a lot of myself. I'm very mothering, you know, and it takes a lot of time away from everything. So, I don't know, it's a thing. I signed Hillary Scott because she looked like my 2nd grade best friend. I know that was the thing. That was the link. I'm not kidding you. And I know I signed Caroline Cupworth because she looked like my 1st grade best friend. There is some kind of 1st grade, there was a link that I know there was something in the back of my head that was very familiar with these girls. It's a stupid gut thing, but it's true. Ryan I signed because he looked like Jake Gyllenhaal, who's just hot, so I had to sign him. And Carden is a star. So I don't know, it's just a gut thing, and I have to like really love them because it takes a lot of time and effort. Because I'm not signing people who write. I'm signing people who are going to learn how to write. So it's a lot. It's a lot.
There's some people in here that I've met that just moved to town. What's the best thing they can do? They don't know what to do yet. They're just getting their feet wet.
I get asked that a lot. And I think sometimes I'm a little bit abrupt in my answer. But I'll tell you the answer I give is just 2 things. Just do it. You know that Nike commercial? Just do it. There is no one way, there is no set path, and if I knew the way you could do it, I would have written the book and retired years ago. So when people go, how do I start? You just start. And I find that the people who ask the most questions are the people that actually have the least success. Because the people who are driven and are passionate, they're really busy. And it doesn't mean that you can't ask for advice. But you just put one foot in front of the other and get yourself to Douglas Corner, get yourself to the Bluebird, sit next to somebody, talk. But if you spend that much time, like, if I only had a Victoria Shaw, if I only had those people are the ones that are making excuses for probably a little lack of talent. That's how I feel. It's like, just do it. I didn't have a set path. I had no clue what I was doing. But when Hillary and I used to be going to meetings and stuff, I would say, here's our motto. Do you ever see Looking for Nemo? Searching, whatever that movie is? Finding Nemo? And there's one point where I think it's Dory or somebody who goes, just keep swimming, 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 just keep swimming. Hillary and I used to do that all the time. We'd go right to it. Before we walked into a meeting, I'd go, just keep swimming, swimming, swimming. And that's my motto.